She was like a breath of fresh air. She was witty and funny. Most importantly, she appreciated me for who I was. I'd dated more than one girl whose mission in life seemed to be to change me into what they thought their ideal man should be. Janet was not like that. I met her when we were both taking night classes in Photoshop at a local college. I had just started digital photography and knew next to nothing about how to proofread photos on the computer. I stopped using the darkroom and tried to bring myself into the 21st century. It turned out to be a lot harder than I thought it would be. Damn, what have I done? I said, looking at the screen. My picture had just gotten 10 times bigger than it should have been. Looking in my notes, I found an icon that would undo what I had done. I'm never going to get that, I said in disgust. The woman next to me started giggling. That's not funny, I told her. Now I was more than embarrassed. No, it is, she looked at my screen. Just resize the print by adjusting the pixels or click the size you want. I moved my mouse, clicked on what I thought was the right icon, and saw that my print was too small this time. Damn, I muttered aloud. There was more than one person looking at me now. You don't mind. I've got a problem here, okay? They stared at me, and I stared back at them defiantly. Meanwhile, the girl next to me continued to giggle, still working on her print. I'm just glad my livelihood doesn't depend on my grade in this class. I've never failed a class in my life, but now I'm just bombing, I groaned, hitting the cancel button for the 10th time in the last half hour. My first class wasn't going well. I went through my notes and started again. I cropped my photo to the right size, adjusted the color and contrast, and started to feel pretty confident for the first time that evening. I wanted to resize it to make an 8 by 10 inch print. I clicked on size, entered 8 by 10, ignoring the pixels, whatever they were, and hit enter. It got too big again. All that was left on the screen was the bird's wing. No head, no legs, no body, just that damn wing. Jesus Christ, I frowned as I stared at the screen and pushed myself off the back of my chair. Screw it. I flicked the switch and shut down the computer. Damn, I didn't eject the disk. I was starting to hate the whole thing. I turned the computer back on, got the usual message that I had shut down the machine incorrectly and that it would have to go through a full diagnostic. I can't win. You're letting yourself do this. Why don't you relax? I heard her calm voice. How could anyone be calm in a situation like this? That's easy for you to say. You don't seem to have any problems. Look, I have a few problems, but I'm not going crazy like some people here. If you want, I'll walk you through it, but you have to promise not to go crazy on me. Okay, I promise. But can I use a couple swear words if it doesn't work? She threw me an angry look. Okay, no swear words, but if my brain explodes, it will be your fault, not mine. For the next 20 minutes, she controlled the mouse and did all the clicking. I took notes and asked questions. Why are you here? You seem to know almost as much as the instructor. I have an older version of Photoshop, and it would only cost me $50 to take this course. They're teaching on the newest version, and if I see it's worthwhile, I'll pay $150 to upgrade. If not, I'll just get a little hands-on experience while waiting for the next version to come out. That's a great picture, by the way. Did you take it? Of course I took it, I replied, a little surprised by her question. All the pictures on this disc are mine. Don't bite my head off, I was just asking. Like I said, great shot. What did you use as a lens? Canon f2, 870 to 200 mm lens. The version with ultrasonic and internal stabilization? She asked. Both and both. Are you a photographer? Not really. I just take a lot of pictures at night and at long distances. I mostly shoot sunrises and wildlife. After a long night of photography, the last thing I want to see in the world is a sunrise. I don't like mornings, she replied. My name is Steve, by the way. And mine is Janet. Nice to meet you, Janet. If you don't mind, could we go through this again so that this time I control the mouse? I want to make sure my notes are accurate. That's how I met Janet. We sat next to each other for all 12 classes. What I didn't learn right away, she tried to show me. Sometimes after class, we would stop and have a cup of coffee or a beer. That's how I found out she had a baby at home. I have to go now, she told me one evening. My mom is watching my daughter and it's getting late. With those words, she waited for my answer. How old is she? Her name is Tammy and she just turned 7. She caught my gaze on her left hand. No, I'm not married, in case you're wondering. I was married once before. Sounds like it wasn't the most memorable time of your life. That's a story for another time when we have more than an hour to kill time. I'll see you next Wednesday. She turned and walked out of the coffee shop. Single with a 7-year-old. I spent the next few minutes finishing my coffee and figuring out how old she was. She looked to be about 22, but let's see, 18 plus 7, so she had to be at least 25. I was 27, so I guess there was no problem. I knew she'd planted that bomb on me to see how I reacted. Hopefully, I passed her little test. I made you a CD of my best work. I handed Janet the disc in class the next week. It's a sort of thank you for all your help over the past few weeks. Believe it or not, at one point I thought about dropping out. You don't sound like a quitter? No, but it just didn't work out for me. I know I let myself do it, but I couldn't get my head or brain or anything else to do it. So this is my way of thanking you for helping me, I said with a wide smile. That's it? No money? No dinner? I guess I was a little taken aback. It was a joke. No one has ever given me anything like that before, and I don't know what to say except thank you. The classes got easier and easier as I got the basics down. I still messed up every now and then, but I held my own for a change. I didn't pay much attention to Janet. I could see she was busy with her screen, and today I wanted to study on my own. At break time, we went downstairs, grabbed a couple Cokes each, and sat outside. You're good, damn good, if you haven't realized it yet. What model of Canon are you shooting with right now? Right now, it's a Canon 20D. Or should I say the company I work for, uses a Canon 5D. It's a step up, but for distance, I lack the 1.65 conversion ratio of the older models. I have to use a 1.5 or 2.0 extender to get really long shots, she explained to me. What distance do you shoot at? I asked. Well, let's just say that most of the time I use a f4, 5400mm SLR lens with a 2.0 extender. Wow, so what are you photographing? Hairs on a gnat at 100 yards away? Something like that. Our break ended and we headed back upstairs. Do you mind if I do a little work on these pictures? You know, clean them up a bit? No, they're yours. Do what you want with them. They're a little rough, especially some of the black and white ones. That's why I'm taking this course, to fix what needs fixing. Give me a couple weeks and I'll see what I can do. I particularly like the picture of the 2 birds in the nest. I call it the boys. They're white herons. They were a couple weeks old. The 2 of them were looking at the top of the nest with their necks stretched out as far as they could go, and their eyes seemed to be looking right at my camera. I thought it was a good shot. Everyone who's seen it thinks it's pretty damn comical. Well, it's a good shot, and I thank you for the disc. For the first time, I was starting to feel a little calmer in class. I wasn't pestering Janet or the instructor, and my confidence was growing. I was never great. I never had that much free time, but I just wanted to learn the basics. I wanted to be able to tweak prints that just weren't perfect. However, there was one big problem. I was a perfectionist, and I was damn competitive. I never accepted anything less than perfection. When I would put a piece of work out and it didn't take first place, I would get angry. I've gotten a million second and third places, but never first place. Maybe after this class I can finally achieve what has eluded me all this time. Janet glowed as she walked into the penultimate class. I made a CD for you with 3 pictures I finished this week. I think you'll be impressed. The pictures were fantastic. Wow, that's all I can say. Are you sure these are the same pictures I gave you? They didn't take as much work on them as you might think. I tweaked the color a little and cut out all the nonsense so your eye is drawn to what you photographed. Do you like it? Love it. I smiled approvingly at her. It deserves more than just coffee. How about I take you out to dinner Saturday night? She hesitated for a few seconds before answering. I'm busy this weekend, but maybe some other time. Who was I kidding? A pretty girl like her should have a steady boyfriend by now. I gave her back one of those fake smiles you give to someone who just gave you bad news and told her it was okay. We'll do it some other time. On the last night of class, I turned in all of my papers. I think I did a great job, and although I wasn't expecting an A, I was hoping for at least a B. Janet didn't show up, and why would she? She was just attending class and hadn't turned in any work anyway. You think you're going to pass the exam? If it were me, I'd probably give you a C+ and make you retake the class. I heard a voice behind me. If it weren't for the fact that you still owe me dinner and don't know how to contact me, I wouldn't even show up today. That lifted my spirits. Here are my cell and work numbers. Call me and let me know when you're free. Oh, by the way, I love Chinese food. How about this weekend? I asked, hoping she could hear the excitement in my voice. Let me check my schedule. I often work weekends. Why don't you call me tomorrow night? But if you don't mind, I'm still at work, so I need to get moving. Maybe by Saturday I'll have a chance to finish a couple more of your pictures. After she gave me her phone number and told me to call her, I heard nothing. On Saturday, everything was ready to go. Instead of picking her up, she decided it would be better for us to meet at a restaurant. I guess she didn't want me to know where she lived until she found out if I was a serial killer or a pedophile. Since I was neither, I wasn't too worried. I've never eaten here, though I've only heard good things about the place. It serves both Chinese and Japanese food, so if you like sushi, you can get your portion. All of this was explained to me when we met at the entrance of the restaurant. This was the first opportunity to really explore what she looked like outside of class. Short, dark brown hair, about 5 feet 4 inches tall, and no more than 110 pounds. A slightly larger than average nose, but she had emerald green eyes that I really liked. I must have stared at her longer than I intended when she asked me if I approved of her. Sorry, this is the first time I've ever looked at you. So what the hell have you been doing for the last 12 weeks? Working on not making a fool of myself, but I've noticed you're easy on the eyes. I'll leave that and the fact that you were mentally undressing me a minute ago. It was one of those dinners that takes all night, and I was grateful for it. We started with her, thank goodness. Janet spoke candidly about her past and what she was looking for in life, if she was looking for anything at all. My ex was a scumbag sucking cheater. We lived for 3 years, which was 2.5 years more than he deserved. I caught him cheating one day and gave him a gift. I forgave him on the condition that if he did it again, it was over. When his friend called one night to interrupt their date, I almost broke his neck when he got home from work. I had already packed his things and left them in the driveway in black garbage bags. When he started banging on the door and threatening me, I called the damn police. When he left that night, I never saw or heard from him again. Like I said, my marriage lasted almost 3 years. The only thing he did right was give me Tammy. She's the most important thing in my life, just so you know that right away. Seems like he set a pretty low bar for any guy who followed him. There's no bar, just inflated expectations on my part. I don't play games or settle for second best. You can ask the 5 previous guys I dated. They thought I'd be an easy target. You know, the hard-working single mom who doesn't get a chance to date very often. Who can be wined, dined, and bedded, if not on the first date, then certainly on the second. Are all men really that stupid? These guys were. And the one who didn't want to take no for an answer? I'm not saying I'm bad, but bad men don't mess with me. Let me guess. You're trying to scare me, aren't you? Not scare me, just inform me. Well, I've dated both witches and bitches, and a few nice girls who thought they were God's gift to men. I've only met 2 that I've fallen in love with and lost. The first one thought I didn't fit her idea of a perfect husband, and with the other I did something really stupid and lost her. But that was a long time ago. Smart people grow up and learn from their mistakes. At least I think so. There must have been something really bad to dump a cute guy like you. Let's just say I did something stupid and leave it at that, okay? No problem. I don't want to pry. That's coming from a true woman. Apparently, Janet didn't know how to feel about that, so she hit me from the other side. So, what do you do when you're not taking gorgeous pictures? I run a team that puts together trade show booths for all the national trade shows. I work in New York, Chicago, Las Vegas, and Orlando. At any trade show that comes to town, I make sure everything is set up correctly and all the exhibitors are happy. Trade shows? Yes, such as the new electronics show, car shows, home building, and a million others. They usually run from Thursday through Saturday. I make sure everything is ready on time, packed and shipped back by Sunday morning. If I have two shows going on at the same time, I sometimes pick the one I'm most interested in and work it. I have enough acquaintances, and if I need anything, I can always find a good deal from one of my friends. Doesn't it get tiresome after a while? I mean, doing the same thing from week to week? Asked Janet, probably wondering how often I'm in town. It's always something new, and I get to know a lot of people. The only problem is that traveling all the time gets a little lonely. You eat alone, maybe have a drink in the hotel bar, and then go up to your room to sleep. The money is good, but that's the only downside. Steve, a good-looking guy like you, there must be a million girls working on the show who would love to park your shoes under their bed for the night, she said almost sarcastically. Not anymore, I replied. When we were finally kicked out, we found ourselves in the parking lot. Well, Mr. Stephen Moore, I had a wonderful time tonight. Well, Miss Janet Collins, so did I. We both looked at each other and started laughing loudly. Okay, I know I'm not going to have any luck tonight, I told her with slight sarcasm. She studied me and was apparently waiting for my next line. Now that the first and most difficult date is behind us, the next 10 to 20 should go smoothly. So, if I'm not mistaken, you want to go out with me again because I'm hell-bent on seeing you again. This time, why don't you check your schedule and give me a call? I'm free most nights, but I'm not the kind of person who needs to worry about anyone else. You seem confident. If it wasn't, there's no way you'd let me do this, I said as I hugged her and kissed her. A lady doesn't run after a man, so let me know your work schedule for the next 2 weeks and we'll be sure to do it again. Janet kissed me, and I knew I was interested in this girl, even though she seemed like a real hard ass. The only thing I could surmise was that she'd been hurt at least once before, and she was damn sure it wouldn't happen again. I wasn't sure what I wanted, but meeting her was on my priority list. Because of her work schedule and mine, we had a hard time getting together for our next date and the 10 more that followed. I learned that Janet worked for a detective firm. She didn't tell me much except that she was one of the 4 partners in the firm. When I pressed her and asked her what types of investigations she does, she said various and mostly confidential, so she couldn't tell me anything specific. I asked if she would let me go with her sometime. She looked at me with a look that I was used to by now and said no way in hell. I brushed it off. When I suggested we spend a full day at Disneyland's Magic Kingdom, Janet informed me that she liked Epcot much better. But I'm willing to bet that Tammy would probably like the Magic Kingdom better. That, my friend, started a discussion that lasted all evening. Instead of going out, we ordered dinner when we realized we weren't even close to solving our problems. Steve, I don't include Tammy in my dates. I don't want her to meet every guy I go out with because most of them don't stay long. Tammy is too precious to me. I don't want her to get attached to some guy so he'll dump her when things don't go his way. There's no way I'm letting her go through that heartache. Look, I don't know where this is going to go between us, but I think you've already realized that I'm not just in it for your hot body. That brought a slight smile to her face. Tammy is a huge part of your life, and if we're going to move on, don't you think you're obligated to meet her? Hell, she might hate me, and I might think she's a spoiled brat like her mom and leave you to fend for yourself. This time, it was my turn to smile. We spent most of the next 2 hours figuring out each other's intentions and what we were both looking for in this new relationship. I wasn't ready for a serious relationship yet, but I wanted us to be exclusive in the future. Janet wanted to know what I meant by an exclusive relationship, and when I told her that, she wasn't too happy about it. You mean not going anywhere or with anyone? What about just being friends with a guy, like having a couple drinks after work? I don't know how jealous or doubtful you are of me having friends of the opposite sex, but I don't have many, even outside of work. Janet, if you want to date others, just let me know, and I won't have to worry about putting any effort into the relationship. We can date whenever we want, have a good time, and leave it at that. However, if you're looking for something more than just a casual boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, then we should be exclusive. One day we're going to be intimate, and I don't want to worry about who I'm sleeping with. You think I'm sleeping with someone? Janet replied irritably. What about you? Who are you sleeping with? I'm not sleeping with anyone, including you, much to my dismay. You just need to make a decision on where you want to go with it, that's all. After that, I'll know how to proceed. This didn't go at all the way I had envisioned. I thought she would be beyond thrilled that I wanted to include Tammy in our plans. This girl had some serious trust issues, and I was giving her the opportunity to work them out with me. I knew that could only happen if we had an exclusive relationship. I didn't want to worry about someone else muddying the waters. I also didn't want a third person in our bed, so to speak, so I decided to give her the time she needed to make a decision. When she called on Tuesday and wanted to meet Thursday or Friday night, I told her I couldn't. I'll be in Chicago until noon Sunday, working the dry cleaning equipment show at the McCormick Convention Center. I'm flying out tomorrow, so let me call you when I get back, or we can talk on the phone in the evenings. Janet wanted to talk face to face, but during the week she called me on my cell phone. Steve, I'm going to miss you. That sounded very eloquent to me. She called me on Friday night just before 10 o'clock. I had already finished dinner and was listening to the band in the hotel lounge when she called. It was pretty loud in there, and the band from out of town was in full force. The women were on a roll, yelling and laughing. Hey, what's up? I said, answering the phone. Tammy is sleeping, and I was just finishing up my journal when I remembered you and thought I'd call. What are you doing? Just listening to a pretty decent lounge band before heading upstairs. Things are going perfectly this week. I'm hoping to catch the 11 o'clock Sunday morning flight if everything goes according to plan. At that moment, two drunk women from the group staggered over to the bar, bumped into me, and spilled their drinks on me. Ladies, please watch where you're going, I tried to say in a polite manner. I grabbed some napkins off the counter, trying to wipe my pants. Here, let me help you with that wet spot, one of them muttered, grabbing a handful of napkins as well. Maybe we should take you upstairs and get rid of those pants, she announced a little too loudly. Her friend giggled. It's okay, ladies. It's no big deal. Thank goodness they took the hint and staggered away. Sorry about that, I said to Janet when I was finally able to return my attention to her call. Like I said, some people just can't drink. Sounds like you're in the middle of a big party, Janet said loudly. No, everyone's just blowing off steam. You take these people out of their usual surroundings, give them a few drinks, and they go crazy, I tried to explain to her. Sounds like you have your hands full. Why don't you give me a call when you get back to town? She ended our conversation and disconnected. Was it just me, or was there a note of irritation in her voice before she hung up? I didn't hesitate long, and the following Tuesday night we did talk. We had dinner at my house and defined a list of limitations on our relationship. We would be exclusive in every sense of the word, and Tammy would participate in all of our activities where appropriate. She liked the idea of a trip to Disney, but she wouldn't agree to the three of us having dinner at my house. We were going to take things slowly and quietly. I was feeling pretty good and filled our glasses with wine again. Here's to us, I toasted, touching my glass to her glass. We both drank our glasses. After a while, we went to the bed. After that, we became a formal couple. Neither of us liked each other's work schedules, but we learned to live with it. Whenever I started asking questions about her work and types of clients, she would pull back a little. Steve, I can't talk about my clients. 90% of the time, litigation will ensue because of what we find out, and I don't want to jeopardize any case by discussing it with you. I didn't like that, but I understood. I just don't want to have to call you 007 or anything like that. I let the whole thing slide. When I brought Janet and Tammy to meet my parents, she was nervous as hell. Relax, they won't bite, and if they like you half as much as I do, you'll do fine. The evening went well until Mom and Janet started talking about my past. She told Mom about her ex-husband, and Mom told her about my ex-fiancé. I didn't know Steve was engaged. She threw a surprised look in my direction. Yes, you were, but it was a long time ago. I think Steve was a little too wild for his own good back then. They were both lucky they never got married. With Steve's wandering gaze and Beth being so stroppy, it wouldn't have worked out for them. It's a good thing Steve grew up. I couldn't hear everything they were talking about, but it was enough for me to realize I was a dead man. So I pretended I hadn't heard anything and hoped Janet wouldn't bring it up. The truth was that I had cheated on Beth when I was out of town for 1 week, and she found out about it. It turned out horribly, and though I begged her to forgive me, she said if I cheated, I cheated. The wedding was called off and she gave me the ring back. That was 5 years ago, but the pain and regret were still there, deep inside me. That night I waited for Janet to talk about it, but she never did. 2 weeks later, I was about to say something, but I decided to refrain. Hell, if she wanted to ask me about it, I'd wait for her to speak up herself. Honey, I'll be out of town next week. I'll be working at an auto show in New York. I thought you were going to be working the ski equipment show in Orlando. Was going to, but with the new cars coming into showrooms this fall, I want to see them up close and personal. Steve, at the prices they're asking for them, you won't be able to afford any of those exotic cars, she reminded me. I know that, but I can take a look, can't I? And I suppose there'll be model hotties everywhere? Sure, but honey, you're the only hot model I want to look at, I said, mimicking a big wet puppy. She slapped my arm. It was a big international show. At least 3 teams were setting up booths and running 1,000,000 miles of electrical wires and computer lines between routers. It took us 2 full days to set up. We also had to have 2 meetings a day to make sure we stayed on schedule. By Wednesday night, we were on a roll. The show opened at 10 the next morning, and we all had to make sure everything went according to plan. I was alone in the hotel restaurant and struggling to get my steak down when I heard someone address me. Do you mind if I sit with you? All the tables are already taken and I hate eating alone. She was pretty damn cute and had a killer body. Sure, I said, standing up and pushing the chair across from mine. Thanks, she said, sitting down with her tray. I'm Katie, and this is my first show. Are they all that crazy? Most aren't that crazy, but this is an international show, so it's bigger than most others. What are you going to do? I asked, sizing her up. I'll be handing out programs and directing people to the different exhibits. I hope I don't screw up. I've never done anything like this before. Relax and don't worry. Even if you get in trouble, pat your pretty eyes and tell them you're new here, but would be happy to help them in any way you can. No guy will get mad at you once you turn on your charm. You think I have pretty eyes? I nodded affirmatively, and we both went back to eating. I finished first and bowed out, telling her I had to attend a renewal meeting. Remember what I told you, and tomorrow will be a walk in the park for you. Maybe I'll see you on the floor, I said with a smile as I wished her a good night. Everything was ready, and we would find out by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning how well we had done. Janet called me just after 11. Hi, darling. How are you holding up? I'm very busy and looking forward to this week being over. How's your new project coming along? Before I left, she informed me that they would be working on an important case this week. So far, so good. I should have it finished Saturday night. You haven't bought anything yet, have you? Not yet, but the exhibit doesn't open until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Who knows? Maybe I'll be driving home on Sunday in something sleek, elegant. Look, Buster, the only sleek thing you'll be popping in on Sunday night is me. I don't have 4 wheels, but I've got everything you need. We both laughed and I told her I missed her. Don't worry, I left my credit card at home on purpose, and besides, my bank account can't take $100,000 hit. Hell, I only had 5,000 in savings and a lot less in my account, not counting the 401k contribution. I never saw Katie on the floor on Thursday, which was probably a good sign that she was doing okay. They always hired all the best-looking models in town for these shows, and it usually worked. We had two minor problems, but nothing more than that. At about 5:30 the first day was over and I was feeling pretty good. Tonight for dinner, I ventured out and ordered my favorite dish, 2 lobster tails. I grabbed a bottle of white wine and was just starting to eat when Katie showed up. Sit down, girl, and tell me about your first day on the floor, I said, pulling out a chair. We spent the next hour talking and discussing our first day. I didn't realize it would be so crowded. I had to restock every hour. Wait until tomorrow and Saturday if you think it was crowded today. We'll probably have twice as many people. My feet are swollen after standing on them all day. I'm not used to standing on a hard surface for 8 hours without a break. Buy gel shoe inserts. They'll make a difference. Steve, have you seen the shoes I have to wear? They're 4-inch high heel shoes with straps here and there just to hold them on. There's not enough material there to hold the insert. Maybe you can attach them to the bottom of your feet. No offense, but if you're going to have a career for a short time, you need to know the tricks of the trade. I've already been asked about the tricks of the trade by more than one male exponent. Kathy, you're going to get jerks everywhere here. Just smile at them, tell them you're not interested, and move on. But don't be surprised if you see more than one girl not leaving. I know more than one person who makes a living catering to a certain clientele. That's their business, and I'm not going to judge what another person does. We talked for another half hour or so and finished my bottle of wine. Do you want to lounge in the hot tub tonight? I think it's just what my body needs. I'd love to, but I have a big day tomorrow and I need as much sleep as possible tonight. But thanks for the offer. Maybe next time. I apologized, went up to my room and called Janet. Her cell phone wasn't answering. She was probably back in her van taking pictures. She always turned her cell phone off when she was working. I left a message. Friday was a rough one, but it was uneventful for a change. Kathy never showed up for dinner, and all the floor staff were invited to the lounge to toast the hotel between 9 and 10 o'clock. I figured a shot or two would relax me enough to go straight to sleep. There was only one day left, but Saturday was usually a crazy day. I didn't see Katie, but I could hear her right behind me. I'm not going to tell you again to get your hands off me, I heard her say. I got up and went to look for her. She was sitting in one corner with a middle-aged man. He didn't seem to be taking no for an answer, and she was more than upset. I didn't recognize him as one of my employees, and at this point, I didn't care who he was. I just needed to get this over with. Sorry, dear, I'm late. I'm stuck on the floor, I said to the two surprised people. Where are my manners? Hi, I'm Steve Moore, and I assume you've already met my fiancée, Kathy, I said, looking directly at him. Honey, we don't have a problem, do we? No, honey, that man was just leaving, she said, looking at both of us with relief. Yeah, I should get going. It was nice meeting you both. He disappeared into the crowd. Steve, I can't thank you enough. He kept groping me and didn't want to leave, she said with her wide smile. I owe you a drink. She pointed to the waitress. We spent the next 2 hours talking and drinking. I had 3 and she had 1, but hell, they were free, so I didn't care. When she asked me to dance, I said yes, but stopped at 1 when she started getting a little too friendly with the hand-waving. You're just beautiful, Steve. Handsome, smooth, and a great dancer. Can I talk you into joining me in the hot tub tonight? Maybe tomorrow, Kathy. I've got another crazy day ahead of me, and I'll need to get my act together. I've had too much to drink tonight, and 20 minutes in the hot tub will probably put me to sleep. With me in the hot tub, I'd make sure you didn't fall asleep, she purred with that cocky look in her eyes. You really are a cranky girl, aren't you? I hope I can trust you to go back to your room alone, because there's going to be hell on earth at the showroom tomorrow. Get some sleep, and I'll see you tomorrow. This girl is built for comfort, I said to myself. I knew the Ferraris that probably wouldn't be able to keep up with her once she got going. A cold shower and checking messages was as good as it gets. Hi, honey, Janet's message read. Sorry I missed you, but I just wanted to say hi. I love you and can't wait for Sunday. Remember, no cars. With that, she finished and I turned off the bedside lamp. There was still light coming through the window, and as my eyes adjusted, I remembered how 5 years ago, another girl who worked on the floor came to my room. I opened the door, and when she walked in, I realized I was in trouble. I was engaged and never planned on taking her to bed. It just happened, or so I told Beth. We partied together that night and went to our rooms, but she wasn't tired, and I guess I wasn't either. We didn't make love, more like use each other to fulfill our animal needs. We did it 3 times that night, and she did things to me that Beth never dreamed of. We would never see each other again, so there were no regrets, no shame, just a great night. The only problem was that when she left my room, one of my employees, who was also a friend of Beth's, saw her. I never realized what came over me when I got home. At first I tried to lie, but when that didn't work, I threw myself on her mercy and begged for forgiveness. I was drunk and didn't realize what I was doing. It was just for fun, and I promised her I would never do it again. But it didn't work. She left me and never wanted to see me again. There was no wedding, no bride, but the grief and heartache was more than enough. I was shit in everyone's eyes. I swore I would never make a mistake like that again. Saturday, I walked around the showroom looking at all the beautiful cars. I must have said if only to myself 1,000,000 times, dreaming of owning 5 or 10 of them, and that night I bought an extra lottery ticket. How was your last day on the floor? I asked Kathy, who replied with a broad smile that she had spent it happily. It's not so bad once you get the hang of it. I think I almost enjoyed it, and I made money too. She looked simply gorgeous and rested from a full day on the floor. She could have a great future if her looks held up. If you don't mind me asking, how much did you make a day? $25 an hour on Thursday and Friday, and $50 an hour for today. That also doesn't include paying for room, food, and clothing. All in all, it was worth it. Well, I've seen a few cars I'd like to have one day, but unless I win the lottery, it's never going to happen. Steve, remember, you promised me you'd join me in the hot tub tonight, and I'm obliging you, she reminded me in an almost scolding tone. The hotel complex gave me a bottle of champagne, and I'll bring it with me. How about 7:30? I nodded and decided I'd give her 20 minutes to lounge in the hot tub before I went back to my room. Katie was in the tub waiting for me. Her costume consisted of so much material that if you put both pieces in your hand and closed it, you couldn't see anything. The bottle was more than half empty, and Kathy didn't seem to feel any pain. I poured myself a glass, climbed into the tub, and enjoyed the hot water jets massaging my sore legs and feet. More than once I had to try to control Kathy's feet. They seemed to be on a search and destroy mission to get into my shorts. When she approached me and told me to relax with no one else around, I realized I was in trouble. Katie, if you stay in that tub any longer, you're going to be labeled, well done. Maybe you should walk me back to my room. I think I'm a little dizzy from drinking champagne, she declared with a drunken laugh. I helped her up and took the half-empty bottle. When we got there, she couldn't even find the room keycard slot. I grabbed it, pushed the door open, and propped it open with the door frame. You want to come in? I have a warm bed, among other things, she said. It's just one night and no one has to know. I can guarantee you won't be disappointed. It took every ounce of moral fortitude I had to hold her back. As much as I'd like to, I just can't. There's a girl waiting for me at home that I care more about than having fun with you. And even though you say no one will find out, I will, and I'll never see her again if I accept your offer. So even though I'll probably need 2 cold showers tonight, I have to decline your offer. Are you sure? More than sure, I replied. Kathy, let me help you into your room, I said, as I put my arm around her to guide her into the room. Steve, that won't be necessary, she said, tying her top and turning to me in a stone-sober voice as she straightened up. Katie, are you okay? I'm fine, and you're probably fine too. I don't understand, I started, as she pushed the door open, and I saw in the mirror the reflection of another person in her room. Janet, I said as I walked through the door. Janet, what are you doing here? I stuttered, looking around at all the camera equipment. Kathy followed me into the room and closed the door. Steve, I can explain all this. Janet sounded like a kid who got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Janet, what the hell is going on here? I asked, looking first at her and then at Kathy. They both looked nervous. Sorry, Steve. I had to make sure, were the next words out of her mouth. Jesus Christ, I screamed. Was this whole thing a freaking setup? I looked at Katie. And you were the goddamn bait? My face must have turned 10 shades of red when I realized what had happened. Steve, it's not as bad as it looks, Kathy said, trying to calm me down. Katie, I called out to her, I think it would be in your best interest to keep your goddamn mouth shut right now. She put on a t-shirt and sat down on the bed at the other end of the room. At that moment, I turned my attention back to a nervous Janet. Why? Why did you do this to me? And then it hit me, talking to my mom. I guess in your book, once a cheater, always a cheater, right? Steve, with Tammy and everything, I had to be sure. Well, I guess you got your damn answer. Satisfied? Steve, please don't be mad. What would I be mad at, Janet? I spat back at her. My girlfriend thinks I'm a cheater and hires some whore to get me into bed and prove I'm not worthy of her. Oh, I'm sorry. After 4 days, she couldn't do it, so I had to take your goddamn test. Well, Janet, you can take that goddamn test and shove it up your ass for all I care. I didn't bother going back to my room, and when my cell phone rang, I threw it against the hotel wall. I would later berate myself for doing that. I was in no condition to drive, so I started walking, or should I say running. An hour later, I was still angry but already exhausted. I got back to my hotel room at 2 in the morning. I was physically and emotionally exhausted and fell asleep just after 4 in the morning, still in my clothes. Waking up brought me back to life. After showering and shaving, I headed to the conference room. It was a madhouse. Everyone was dismantling their booths and packing up. I met up with my supervisor, Tim. We went over the schedule and dove headfirst into work. 3 hours later, it was time for cleanup. Boss, I tried calling your phone, but it went straight to voicemail, Tim told me. My phone had an accident, and I'll have to buy another one tomorrow, I explained. Just make sure everything is cleaned up before you close the doors. I don't need anyone else sitting on my ass today before I leave. You guys did a great job this week. I'll see you on Monday. I left. I checked out of the hotel, returned the rental car, and flew home before noon. For the first time in my life, I was glad to be without my phone. The 3.5-hour flight home gave me too much time to dwell on my problems. I tried to sleep, but my brain and the in-flight movie prevented it. Every time I thought about what Janet had done, I got angry all over again. I felt like a puppet that had been played for 4 damn days. This was probably the big project she'd told me she'd been working on while I was out of town. And here I thought she was actually working, not trying to do her best to get me to cheat on her. The only thing that made me happy was that I didn't. It would have been so damn easy, and Katie was so incredibly beautiful. But I resisted. I turned out to be a lot stronger than I thought I was. I landed, got my luggage, and walked out to my car parked in the long-term parking lot. All I wanted to do was drive home, take a shower, and drink a couple dozen beers. I needed to get drunk to ease the pain of being pranked. The answering machine was full. Some were from my boss wondering why he couldn't reach me on my cell phone, one from Tim informing me that it was 3 o'clock and he was leaving because everything was ready. The others were from Janet. Steve, please call me, we need to talk. And another, I'm sorry, that was a stupid thing to do and I'm sorry. Just 2 out of 20. The last person in the world I wanted to talk to right now was Janet. After finishing the 5 beers that were in the fridge, I started on the bottle of white Zinfandel that was in my wine cabinet. I wanted to get drunk enough to fall asleep so I wouldn't have to relive the last 4 days over and over in my brain. I wondered how far Kathy would go if I gave in to her. I know Janet was in her room Saturday night, but what about Friday when she wanted to go to the hot tub? Saturday, when I walked into that room, I remembered seeing all of Janet's camera equipment, and now I put two and two together. She was always in the background taking pictures of the two of us. God, so that's why she never picked up the phone when I called her. I was pissed off again. When the sun peeked through my bedroom window, I realized I was late for work. I felt like shit. I stripped off my clothes and took a shower. As I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and shaved, the mirror reflected back to me that I looked like shit. I deleted all her messages, but as I walked by, I noticed 10 new ones. I must have really been drunk last night. I hadn't heard the phone ring once. I smiled. Mission accomplished. Damn, Steve, I haven't seen you in this condition in a long time, my boss said when I showed up 2 hours late. You're not going back to the old Steve, are you? God, I sure as hell wouldn't want to put up with that idiot again. Just had too much to drink last night, that's all. I reached for the coffee pot, hoping the coffee would help me feel human again. Good, because we need to coordinate schedules this morning, and I need to discuss something with you as soon as possible. Henry, give me 5 minutes to finish my coffee and check my email, and we'll meet at your office. He nodded in agreement and left. And what the hell did I do? Of the 42 emails, 75% turned out to be garbage. A third of them required a yes or no answer, and the rest would have to wait until he met with Henry. Have a seat and close the door, he asked the secretary to hold our calls. I got the first feedback from the convention center about last week's trade show, and it looks like we have a bit of a problem. Oh, shit, were the first words that echoed through my brain as I tried to remember what we screwed up or forgot. They called me this morning and told me that because of the way we handled the New York show, they want us to handle San Francisco and Detroit. I tensed and squirmed, waiting for the bad news I had almost missed. Let me get this straight. Did they like it? More than liked it, they liked the way you and Tim handled the crew. They said it was the best show in the last 5 years, and with the exception of a couple burps on Thursday, everything went off without a hitch. I wrote a little thank you check for you and Tim for all your hard work last week, he glowered. They want you and Tim to visit both sites this week. They want to explain what they need and set up a schedule for next year. It's a huge opportunity for all of us. This week? Why, do you have something going on that I don't know about? The only thing I know is that this week we have a hell of a lot of paperwork that needs to be done from last weekend. I wanted to cry. I won't be able to fly out until tomorrow, and I think 3 days at each facility will be more than enough. You and Tim will stay there as long as they need you to, okay? You're the boss, I replied. Damn right I am. Now get out of here. Go with Tim and get on the earliest possible flight tomorrow. And by the way, where the hell is your cell phone? It's kind of broken. Well, then buy it today. I can't have my best guy out in the field without it. I bought a replacement on the way to my house. I called Tim and told him the short version. He wasn't thrilled about leaving town again tomorrow. Look at it this way. When you hand your wife a fat bonus check and tell her to go nuts, she'll probably cheer you up when you get back. He laughed, but I didn't. I still had one more matter to take care of before I left. I was packed by 8:30 and was just going over my plans when her letter arrived. It was pretty much the same as all the others. She apologized that I wasn't supposed to see her and that she needed to meet me so we could talk. She said something about the L word and that we could work things out. I hit the reply button. Janet, I think the last thing you want to do right now is talk to me. I'm still so angry, I don't know how I would act or what I would say, but it wouldn't be nice. I'm going away for about a week and a half, and by the time I get back, I'll probably have calmed down a bit. While I'm gone, I need you to do one thing, and only if you want to. I need you to think hard about why you did this to me, or should I say, to us. You can give me the long version or the short version, and we can do it by email or in person. That will be your prerogative since you started it. All I want to know is why I think you owe me this much. Why don't we set up a meeting in a week, this Thursday at the Chinese restaurant where we had our first date? Maybe that will bring us some luck. unless you're trying to trap some unsuspecting husband that night. So I'll see you Thursday at 7:30. If you decide not to come, I understand. Steve? Knowing that I was taking an unfair jab at the comment about the unsuspecting husband, I hit the send button anyway. We were busy, but I couldn't take my mind off Janet and those 4 hellish days. We finished work a day early and spent all day Wednesday in the office poring over papers. I didn't sleep a wink Wednesday night, revising what I was going to say 1,000 times and changing it for the 10th time. By Thursday night, I had no idea what I wanted to say. I decided I was just going to talk. We took a booth in the back of the room and immediately made reservations to be alone. Janet came prepared. Heck, she had everything she was going to say printed out, double-spaced. Small talk was scarce. We both knew what we were here for. She asked if she could speak first. I could see she was ready to explode. She made some valid arguments. She talked about her cheating husband, the fact that I cheated on Beth, the fact that she had serious trust issues, and that she had to look out for Tammy. The fact that she kept hearing female voices in the background every time I called her made her somewhat suspicious. After all, she just had to find out for herself if I would cheat again if the opportunity presented itself. She hoped that we could get through this and that she thought we might have a future. I thought about her words and completely forgot about what I was going to say. The time I wished I had made a list like hers. Janet, you made some good points, especially about your daughter's defense. Your story, mine, and what happened are all valid points. But my first question is, why didn't you just talk to me about your concerns? Did you think I would lie to you or just tell you what you wanted to hear? You see, in some ways you're like my ex-fiancée Beth. Deep down you don't believe, like her, that a person can change. She started to say something, but I stopped her. Please let me finish. My mother herself said I had a wandering eye, but that was a long time ago, and I'm all grown up now. I've shown you, and even more so myself, that I've changed and that I'm stronger than I thought I was. And you know what made me so strong? It's my feelings for you. Steve, we can get through this. You didn't cheat, Janet reminded him. This time, what happens 6 months, a year, 5 years from now when you start doubting again? Who will you send then? You say you had trust issues, and now I have the same issues. Every time I see a pretty girl smiling at me or flirting with me, I wonder if it's one of your plants. If I see the same guy twice, I'll wonder if I'm being followed. And finally, I'll always wonder if you're bugging my hotel room, my car, or looking at all my emails and text messages on my phone. You see, trust is a double-edged sword, and it swings both ways. We're both cut and bleeding right now, and our relationship is on life support. Steve, I know I overreacted, but I've been hurt before and I didn't want to go through it again. Relationships are short-lived at best. Hell, 50% of marriages end in divorce. But I put myself out there, analyzed and supposedly trusted you. Looks like I was wrong. You killed what we had before I left Wednesday morning, and now I don't see how we can get it back. Can't we try? A remorseful Janet asked. I'm willing to try, I just don't want you to get your hopes up. We talked and had a nice dinner. Neither of us ate much and we kissed goodnight, which was only natural. We emailed and even met up 2 more times, but what we had was almost dead. Son, I can't believe you're breaking up with Janet over such a trivial matter. Can't you see that she just wanted to make sure you were for real? Mom was trying to get me to see that Janet was right. No one seemed to see it from my point of view. No matter, we were almost done. After work on Thursday, I decided to take Tim and his wife out to dinner as a sort of thank you for all the hard work he had put in over the past 2 months. When we entered the restaurant, a little after 7, I saw her, but thankfully, she didn't notice me. Maybe we should go and find somewhere else, Tim said, looking at me for direction. And miss the show? Not on your life. We ate and drank and I watched and studied. We even kissed on the lips a few times. After dessert, I told Tim that I would see him in the morning. Steve, please don't do anything stupid. Henry will get his ass kicked if I let you go to jail. Don't worry. I'm just going to say hi to an old friend. I walked over to their table. Good evening, Janet, I said, taking her by surprise. I see now that your job involves a lot more than just taking pictures, as you told me. She started to say something, but stopped halfway through. Apparently, the truth and credibility in your book is only one way. Too bad. Well, go on. I wouldn't think of interrupting someone when they are doing something they really enjoy. I heard Steve say, wait, but kept walking to my car. And then I got another email from her trying to explain that she was only working and had never slept with any man, but I never responded. Trust. I never knew that one word could cause so much pain and suffering in my life. But now when I meet someone, I tell them in advance what I expect, and if they can't handle it, well, there are plenty of fish in the sea, as they say. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video. Last year, Father's Day started out as usual. I always woke up first. I never got a good night's sleep, so I knew it would be quite a while before my 18-year-old wife and my 18 and 17-year-old girls woke up and joined me. Every year for Mother's Day, I made my wife a nice breakfast of mimosas. For lunch, I would make her a cheese, fruit, and nut plate with a bottle of good white wine. For dinner, I would make her favorite dinner, grilled steak and baked potatoes paired with a good Cabernet Sauvignon. When the girls were younger, they helped with breakfast and the obligatory waiting for mom, but as they got older, I was left alone to pamper them. No big deal. My wife usually reciprocated by cooking me a special breakfast, although on Father's Day I cooked steaks for dinner. So last year on Father's Day, I waited until my wife woke up to make me breakfast, which doesn't happen on any other day of the year. She doesn't know it, but I usually eat something small when I wake up around 6. I would starve to death if I didn't eat until she wakes up around 9, which is early for her on the weekend. When she woke up, she gave me a kiss, wished me a happy Father's Day, and started making a special breakfast for the family. For lunch, we went to a kitschy little cafe with Doctor Who-themed sandwiches, and overall it was a good day. My wife is a slave to the calendar and knows when all the important dates fall. She manages everything from holidays to the kids' activities with a dry erase calendar hanging on the side of the kitchen cabinet. All holidays, milestones, school events, half-days, etc. are recorded on the calendar. Nothing is ever missed. Except when I miss something, of course. The next year, when my wife was putting the dates on the calendar at the end of May, she said, "Hey, Bill, your birthday falls on Father's Day this year." It wasn't the first time, so I wasn't surprised. I said, "Nice. Don't save money and cheat me if I don't get 2 gifts." Kathy replied with a laugh, "You'll never leave me alone if you get cheated out of a gift. I'm going to have to do something special for you this year." I kissed her cheek and squeezed her ass as I walked out of the kitchen. I hoped she meant something more than the annual birthday and Father's Day blowjobs. She started giving me blowjobs when we were making regular love, but never finished them. They were usually part of foreplay, except for those 2 days when she brought it to an end, so to speak. On my birthday and Father's Day, she would give me a good blowjob, not expecting to get one in return. I usually brought her to orgasm when she did. I wasn't a complete idiot about it. I was horny and thought I was going to get super rare anal sex on my upcoming special day. The weeks leading up to my big day were strange in our house. My wife was acting strange. She was working late, snapping at me and the girls about little things, and she started dressing for work more often. She worked as the bakery manager at our local grocery store. She had never worn makeup before, but around this time she began to do so. She also wore a scarf over her clothes, which consisted of a white button-down shirt and pants. She would leave another button undone, which further showed off her ample cleavage. I started to have my doubts when, on the Friday before my birthday, she went somewhere without me. We often met together with a core group of married couples, so she rarely went out with the girls alone. If someone was going out for a drink and invited her along, she would let me know the place and I would meet them. It's not like I was an ogre and wouldn't let her do things on her own. She always said she enjoyed her time more if I was with her. It made me feel good, and I thought our marriage was pretty strong because of little things like that. For my part, I didn't do much without her outside of our social circle either. It just worked for us. We weren't party people or big drinkers. Our idea of a nice Friday night was just hanging out on the couch together and watching a couple of movies. That's why I was surprised to see her coming down the stairs that Friday, dressed to the hilt. She was wearing a new short skirt, nude stockings, and high-heeled shoes. She had also clearly been to the tanning salon and had her hair done. I whistled and asked, "Shit, honey, did I forget about the fact that we're going out? Let me get dressed real quick." "No, Bill. I'm going out with a few people from work. I thought you could order a pizza for yourself since our girls are going out too." I was shocked. She had never mentioned it, and it wasn't on her precious calendar. "Oh? You didn't tell me you had plans. I thought we'd finish our shows tonight." A look of fear appeared on her beautiful face, but then she pulled herself together and softened. "I'm sorry, babe. I was just asked today." I made it a point to look her over from head to toe and said, "So you just found out today, and in the hour you were at work before me, you bought a new skirt, went tanning, and got your hair done?" I was getting angry. She was lying to me, but I couldn't prove it. I couldn't believe she could cheat on me. It was out of character. She was the epitome of a suburban soccer mom's wife and mother. Our sex life was great. We still made love several times a week. She had no reason to cheat on me. She snapped back, "I worked half a day today. I wanted to look good for a change." Before I could respond, she was out the door without another word, leaving me wondering what the hell had happened. I waited for her, and she came home just before midnight. Her hair was no longer lying down, but was put up in a regular ponytail. So much for the hairstyle. She walked past me without a word and went upstairs. A few minutes later, I heard the shower running. I could only shake my head and wonder what she had done that she had to shower before bed. She didn't come down and say goodnight before going to bed. I realized that something was wrong in my perfect little world, and wondered how wrong. I work in the retail industry, so I was at work on Saturday morning. Usually when I was getting ready for work, she would wake up and kiss me goodbye before going back to bed. That morning I got nothing. Once again, I was shocked. When I got to the store, I saw Missy waiting at the entrance. Missy was the morning barista at our big store's coffee shop. She was a pretty red-haired girl whose blue eyes were striking. As happily married as I was, I couldn't help but take notice of her. I had always liked redheads. "Hey, Bill," she called out as I approached the entrance. It was still locked, since it was a half hour before the store opened. The guys on the night crew could have let her in, but as she had told me before, she didn't feel comfortable alone in a store with a bunch of guys. "Good morning, Missy," I said as I opened the doors in front of us. "What's wrong, Bill?" "You look like someone killed your cat." "I'm sorry, I have a lot on my mind today." She gave me a strange look, but left it at that. "Give me a few minutes and I'll pour you a cup of our best." I forced myself to smile and said, "Sounds good. I'll see you soon." I locked the doors as she hurried to get the cafe ready for the morning rush. I knew she would be very busy once the store opened. Our little cafe was always crowded in the mornings. As I walked the floor, I would check on the crews who were preparing their departments. I always went around the departments in the morning. This was not necessary as I had a very good team of department managers, but it gave me a chance to say hello and make small talk. I felt it was important to maintain a good relationship with my team members, and I think they appreciated my efforts. The last stop on my walk was a coffee shop where Missy had my large black coffee waiting for me. "Here you go, boss. 1 cup of Megamart's best beer." "Thanks, Missy." I put $2 on the counter. "No, Bill. He's in the house today." "No way, Missy. I pay for everything here. The last thing I need is someone getting mad at me and calling corporate to denounce me." She gasped. "Bill, I would never—" "I didn't mean you, Missy. I can't take any chances, even for a $2 coffee. You'd be surprised at the things I have to put up with if I deny someone a day off or cut overtime. It's just unreasonable." "All right, boss. Fair enough." I waved goodbye and sipped from my mug. I'm sure some of the employees got free coffee from time to time. There's no way to track it, and who needs to? Too much work because of cheap coffee. I can't imagine watching hours of video to make sure everyone paid. It was different for me. Being in charge of a company was a risk. Employees lost their temper over the dumbest things. I had HR called on me because I was enforcing parking regulations. Seriously, calling HR because you have to park in your backyard. That's ridiculous. The day ended and went pretty quietly. The thing that excited me the most was the old lady who stole the cat food and bird food. It was exactly the kind of day I needed. I was busy enough not to ruminate on my new problems with my wife, but not so busy that I couldn't get everything done on time. When I walked through the door of the house, my wife and daughters were on their way out. I was surprised for a moment, but I looked at the calendar. "Bye, Daddy," my daughter said, kissing me on the cheek goodbye. My loving wife said nothing. They were going to a concert with other moms and daughters. It had been planned a long time ago and was on the calendar, but as usual, I forgot. I was hoping that I would have a chance to talk to Katie and figure out what was going on. I hated not knowing what she had done the night before. After not thinking about it all day, there was nothing left for me to do but ruminate about it tonight. I took this opportunity to do a bit of fooling around. I checked her email but figured it wouldn't work, and it did. No one else was sending emails. She had a cell phone, so I couldn't check her messages or call log. I went over to the hamper to check her clothes from the evening, but since it was Saturday, she had already done her laundry. I accomplished nothing, and after watching the movie, I went to bed feeling no better than before. I woke up on my birthday and Father's Day and started my day as usual. I ate a couple slices of toast, drank some coffee, and sat on the terrace to enjoy the morning. It was a gorgeous day. I enjoyed the birds chirping and wondered what this special day had in store for me. Around 9, I went into the house to refill my coffee and was surprised to see that my wife and daughters were already up and packing lunch. "What's going on?" I asked, wondering why they didn't make me get ready to go somewhere. My daughter Jill said, "We're going to the beach." "Oh," I said, and went upstairs to get dressed for the lake. As I was putting on my shirt, I heard my daughter Jenny yell out, "Bye, Daddy! See you later." The door slammed shut, and I looked out the window to see my wife and daughters leaving. I couldn't believe it. I didn't expect the girls to remember my birthday. I had to remind them of their mother's birthday and Mother's Day, but I couldn't understand Katie not remembering. I walked down the stairs and heard my cell phone ring. I rushed over there, hoping they understood and were going to tell me they were coming back for me, but no. It was my mom. "Hey, Billy. Happy birthday and Father's Day." "Thank you, Mom." "Kathy has big plans for you guys today?" "No. She took the girls to the beach a few minutes ago." "Really? That's not like her. I'd bet she'd make you a delicious breakfast and make this day special for you." "Yeah, I honestly don't know what's going on right now. She's been acting weird for weeks now." "Well, don't make a fuss. She probably has something special planned for later. I've got to get to church. Love you, Billy." "Love you, Mom." You had to love my mom. She was an eternal optimist, and she loved Kathy as if she were her own flesh and blood. She and Kathy had visited each other regularly since my dad had died a few years before. Kathy wanted to make sure that Mom wasn't too lonely. I was standing there wondering what the hell was going on with my marriage when the phone rang again. It was my assistant, Anne. "Bill, we had an incident at the coffee shop this morning." "What's wrong?" Missy was on the stairs when she was pushed by a customer. "She lost her balance and fell." "Oh my God!" "Is she okay?" They took her to St. Alex's Hospital to get x-rays. "She might have a broken arm or something." "Damn!" "Poor girl. Do you have a shift?" "Yeah, it's all set. I just didn't want you to catch me off guard tomorrow. I'm sorry I bothered you on Father's Day." "Don't worry about it, Anne. Thanks for calling. I was hoping Missy would be okay." I fiddled around the house for a while and, figuring they weren't coming back, headed to IHOP for breakfast. It turned out to be a mistake for my state of mind. The wait was long, and everywhere I looked there were families. Happy families celebrating fathers and grandfathers. I left before I started crying. I made my way through McDonald's and got a big breakfast of coffee and orange juice. The pancakes were surprisingly tasty as I sat in the park and ate with a plastic fork and knife. I looked out at the small lake I used to take my girls boating on when they were little. They loved the water. Whether it was swimming, boating, or even fishing, they loved being on the lake. As they got older and almost went to college, they lost interest in fishing, and looking back, I think they lost interest in spending time with me at all. In those days, all their outings were with their mother. Probably the right thing to do. Shopping for clothes with my father, I'm sure, would have been burdensome for a young girl. At 1 o'clock, there was no word from my wife. I could only assume that there would be no dinner together. I stopped by the Doctor Who cafe and ordered a Reuben. Of course, the name was related to the show, like the Dalek Reuben Revolution or something equally silly. Being a 40-year-old man who has no idea what's cool and what's not, I took a picture and registered on Facebook. I got the usual likes and happy Father's Day greetings from my friends and acquaintances. Oddly, my mother-in-law commented that she thought I was at the beach with my wife and girls. Apparently, my wife had been posting beach pictures on her Facebook page. I finished my sandwich and headed to a sports bar near my house. I hadn't watched a ball game in a while, so I decided to drown my sorrows in Miller Lite. The bar was crowded, and I wasn't in the mood for it, so I went to the cigar lounge next door and treated myself to a $60 Opus X. Happy birthday to me. I sat down at a table and turned on the Sox game, and a couple guys playing cards invited me to join them. "I'm Bill," I said, introducing myself to the older gentleman. "I'm Lance, and this is my brother Jerry. It's nice to meet you both." They finished their hand and dealt me in their little 5-card game. "Help yourself, Bill," Lance said, setting the cooler on the floor. I thanked him and pulled out a Miller Lite. "No kids? Or is the ex having them with a new man?" asked Jerry with a smirk. I frowned and said, "My wife and the girls are at the beach. They don't seem to know what day it is." "Sucks," Lance added. "I don't see my boys much. Both are serving?" Jerry nodded and said, "My daughter lives in California. My grandson Charlie just turned 2 years old. I'm going there next week." "That's great," I said. When my girls turned 17 and 18, I was starting to miss the little ones running around. They both nodded understandingly. After some time of small talk, we somehow got back to the subject of my wife. "Do you think she really forgot, or is she avoiding you on purpose?" asked Jerry. It was a great question that I've been pondering as well. I told them about the last few weeks, up until Friday's problems, and they shook their heads. "She's cheating on you," Lance said. Jerry nodded in agreement. "I can't believe it," I said. But as soon as he said it, I realized it was the only explanation that made sense, and I tried to believe it wasn't true. "Look, Bill," Lance said, "I've been through this before. The changes in behavior, the sudden night out in slut clothes, the disrespect, I've been through it, buddy. My wife fucked a coworker a couple times, and when I found out about it, I divorced her. Biggest mistake of my life." "What?" snapped back at me. "She cheated on you. How is divorcing her a mistake? In my opinion, there were no excuses. Treason is the end of a marriage, plain and simple. Period. End of story. Bill, I was broke for 5 years paying her child support and alimony. I missed her every damn day, loving her across town in my lonely apartment while she was alone in my house. She may have cheated on me, but at that moment I was too arrogant to forgive her. It's been 7 years, but we got back together after I pulled my head out of my ass. We're happy now." "Jesus," I said. "Giving her body to another man is the biggest insult and disrespect my wife is capable of. If what you say is true and she's having an affair, then she's either so involved with her lover that she's forgotten my birthday, or she's purposely blowing me off. Either of those options is unacceptable." Lance shook his head. "Bill, trust me. If you really love her, find a way to forgive her. You'll be better off in the long run. 40-year-old guys don't get second chances at love." "Thank you, Lance. You've given me a lot of food for thought." I may have said that, but what I was really thinking was that he was crazy. There was no way I could forgive her for cheating on me, and no way I could stay married to her. I shook both men's hands, wished them well, and left. As I sat on the couch browsing Facebook, it was almost dinner time. I saw my daughter's and wife's posts with pictures of their happy day and was saddened even more. Screw it, thought I. I needed to man up and stop acting like a lost child. My wife forgot my birthday. It happens. She forgot Father's Day. What's the difference? What mattered was that I was sure she had cheated on me on Friday night, and probably many times in the previous weeks she had acted strangely. Having her rub it in my face was supposed to be her ultimate goal. Well, she finished it well. It was time to get ready for the rest of my life. I decided to go out to dinner at my favorite restaurant. I knew it would be a long wait, and that was okay. I didn't have anything to do. So I took a shower, put on my sport coat and slacks, and went to get a steak. I was sitting at the bar of a steakhouse waiting for a table when an older man sat down in the empty seat next to me. He saw my bottle of champagne with one glass and frowned. Fortunately, he didn't say anything, just ordered a martini. As the bartender was filling my glass, the man apparently couldn't resist asking, "Are you celebrating alone, or am I taking someone else's place?" "No," I said, "it's okay. I'm alone here." He nodded and took a sip. He must have been in sales because he couldn't sit still. He said, "Yes, I'm waiting for my 3 generations of red rage. My wife is helping my daughter who broke her arm today. I guess she doesn't take well to having to do everything with her left hand." He laughed and continued, "You just don't expect your grown children to break bones. I thought those days were behind us." I agreed with his opinion and nodded. "Looks like I'll be cooking on my own for a few weeks. My wife will have to take care of Missy and Mia and leave me alone." I popped my head up. "What did you say?" Before he could answer, a little girl shouted from across the room, "Grandpa!" and rushed across the crowded bar. The little ball of red curls jumped into his lap and showered the man with hugs and kisses. A moment later I heard, "Bill!" I turned and saw Missy, and who I assumed was her mother, standing next to me. Her mother was a perfect portrait of her. Except for a few wrinkles around her eyes, they looked exactly alike. "Hey, Missy. How's your arm?" "It's okay. I'm on strong painkillers, so I don't feel anything special. It hurt like hell when they put it in, though." Missy introduced me to her parents, Jack and Mary, and then to her adorable little girl, Mia. "Where's your wife, Bill?" she asked. "I don't know. She took my girls to the beach this morning, and I haven't heard from them all day." "Really? On Father's Day?" "Worse, it's also my birthday today." "Oh my God! She blew you off on your best day of the year? What's her problem?" I didn't want to get into it and say more than I should, so I shrugged. "Well, forget about her." "You have to join us," Mary said firmly. I realized what Jack meant by his red rage. "I don't—" "Forget about it, Bill. You don't want them to militia on you, it's not nice," Jack said with a chuckle, indicative of his years of experience militiaing on them. "But it's your day, Jack." "I don't want to interfere." "Bullshit," he said. "This is our day." "Grandpa, you said—" "I know, Pumpkin. I said a bad word. Grandma will punish me later." "Daddy!" He winked at me as their table's buzzer sounded. "Pay up, Bill, and meet me at our table." "No payoff." He said it in the tone of a drill instructor. He tossed a 20 on the counter and left. "I'm sorry, Bill." "My parents can be thick-headed." "Don't worry, Missy. I suppose it's better than eating alone." Conversation over dinner was light. Bill and I told stories about our daughters growing up, and Mia asked lots of questions. She kept giggling at the awkward stories about her mom as a child. After dinner, my phone rang. I saw that it was my wife, ignored the call, and put the phone on the table. "Your wife?" asked Mary. "Yes." "It's more than you think, isn't it?" asked Missy. "I think so, but I have no proof." "Bill, everyone makes mistakes," Mary said, looking directly at Jack. "Maybe you can find a way to forgive her." Missy popped her head up and stared at Mary. I beckoned to the waiter and handed him my credit card. "Well, I've destroyed enough of your meeting. Thank you for inviting me to share a meal with you." "Bill, let me—" "No, Jack. It was an honor to have lunch with you and especially one of my favorite employees. It's on me. Happy Father's Day." I shook their hands and walked over to the waiter's counter to sign the check. I didn't even have hard evidence that she was cheating on me, but I'd already gotten 2 to 2 from people telling me I should forgive her. What's wrong with people? The phone rang over and over, but I ignored it. I pulled into my garage and was greeted by 2 whirling dervishes, showering me with kisses and hugs, apologizing for abandoning me on Father's Day. "Girls, don't worry about it. I don't expect you to remember when it's my birthday. "It's your birthday today?" yelled Jill. Then she ran into the house, yelling at my wife. "Daddy, we didn't know." "I'm so sorry," she sobbed against my chest. "You must hate us." "No, baby. I love you more than life itself." When she suggested last night that we go to the beach today, we jumped at the opportunity. "We didn't think—" Baby, it's all right. Don't worry about it. I'm not mad at you. I didn't tell her I was mad at her mother, but that was my problem, not my daughter's. Let's go inside. I walked through the kitchen, ignoring my wife crying and being scolded by my daughters, and went upstairs to change. Putting on shorts and a t-shirt, I returned to the war zone and found my wife sobbing alone. I'm sorry, she muttered. I shook my head and went out on the deck with a beer and a cigar. It was a beautiful night, and I was enjoying the quiet, thinking about work instead of my wife, when the sliding door opened. Bill, What's his name? I asked, interrupting her. I didn't look at her, and she didn't go any farther out on the deck. Bill. What's his name? The man you had sex with on Friday. My anger was building. I heard the door close, but she didn't come out. She didn't deny it. That's when I realized I was going to see a divorce lawyer soon. Almost 20 years of marriage gone. What a stupid woman I'd married. At this point, I started thinking the worst. How long had she been cheating? Was he her first? Did I know him? Were these girls even mine? It's amazing what negative thoughts come into your head when you're treated so badly. I decided to request a paternity test for the girls as part of the divorce. It would not only be for my peace of mind, but also for Katie's embarrassment. I spent the rest of the night researching divorce laws online and then fell asleep on the couch. That's how I spent my birthday. I woke up at 5 in the morning. I found Katie in my bedroom, sound asleep, curled around her pillow. The funny thing was that she looked peaceful, unlike how poorly I had slept. Her body was naked and her ass was showing in her panties. She was so beautiful, too bad she wasn't mine anymore. I would have missed her body. I grabbed what I needed and took a quick shower. I managed to escape without waking her, but Jill was waiting for me in the hallway. How bad is it, Dad? I sighed. This is as bad as it can get. Can you forgive her? I mean, it's just one day's oblivion. Honey, she didn't just forget my birthday or Father's Day. She cheated on me. She sighed. No, Daddy. She wouldn't. She had to do it, but I won't accept it. Think about it. The last few weeks she's been acting strange. Friday night, after getting a tan and getting her hair done, she went out dressed like a whore. That was definitely not for me. She shook her head. Babe, she avoided me all day Saturday and Sunday. She clearly had either guilt or hatred for me and didn't want to be around me at all. When has she ever taken you to the beach without me? It's always a family excursion. What if it's not an affair? What if it was just a one-time thing? Can't you forgive her for one time? I doubt that's true, honey, but look at all her actions. For once this weekend, has she acted like she loves me? Daddy, you didn't see the look on her face when Grandma called her to ask why she didn't call Grandpa to wish him a happy Father's Day. She dropped the phone and yelled, "No!" So loud we thought Grandpa was having a heart attack or something. He's okay, Dad. Mom sobbed on her knees until we lifted her up and sat her on the couch. She kept saying over and over that she loved you. Honestly, Jenny wanted to call an ambulance for her. She thought she was going to have a breakdown. We calmed her down and managed to get her to call you. Jill, I don't know what you want me to say. She doesn't love me. You can't cheat on your spouse and love your spouse. That's not an act of love, that's selfishness. Love must be selfless. When she became intimate with another man, she discarded me. She hugged me and cried. I'm going to assume it wasn't some random guy she picked up at a bar. She must have flirted or accepted his flirting with her. There must have been intimate touching, perhaps kissing and caressing, all of which preceded her first sex with him. All of these actions leading up to sex are a betrayal to your spouse. You can't be in love with someone and show someone else intimate affection. Please don't divorce her. I have to go to work. I'll talk to you later. She walked into Jenny's room. I'll be sure to tell her about what we talked about. There would be no more secrets in our family. I wondered how much longer we would be a family. I knew Kathy would be too busy at work to try to call or text me, so I was calm most of the day. The only thing that made the day not quite normal was filling out the corporate forms related to Missy's accident. She would be compensated for her vacation, and I hoped she wouldn't be too worried. I didn't know anything about her personal life, except that she wasn't married. She came in to sign the forms and fill out the accident report. I wrote it for her, as she is not good with her left hand, and she signed it. "How are things at home?" she asked. "Not really." She didn't deny it when I told her about her affair. "Shit, Bill. I'm sorry. I'm sure you don't want to know my life story, but I understand how you feel. My ex-husband cheated on me while I was pregnant. I kicked him out before my daughter was born. My mom was furious. She basically called me a throwaway." "Jesus." "I thought it was weird when your mom mentioned last night that she forgave my wife. She was looking right at your father when she said that." "Yeah, I noticed that too. I'm not sure who exactly, but it makes me think one of them was cheating." "I'm sorry." "You shouldn't. They seem happy, so they're free to live as they please. I prefer never to trust a liar." "Me too," I said firmly. "Kathy wasn't home when I got home from work. She was probably having sex with her stud, and I was pissed. I got back in the car and drove the 2 miles to her grocery store. I saw her car in the parking lot, and to my surprise, I saw her sitting in it with a young man. When I stopped in front of her car, she noticed me, and I saw her yell, 'No!' She opened the door, but I had time to leave. If she was going to cheat on me, he could have taken her. I'm done." I drove home and ran upstairs to pack. I planned to stay in a hotel until I found an apartment. Before I knew it, Jenny and Jill were crying and begging me to stay. "Sorry, girls, but your mom was just about to cheat on me when I caught her. She was in the car with some guy when I pulled up beside her. Dad, this has to be a mistake." "Girls, I know what I saw. She had a man in her car. Why would she stay after work and have a man in her car if she wasn't going to take him somewhere? She can't say they were just having lunch. There is no innocent explanation for her sitting in the back parking lot after work with a man in her car." "Daddy, please don't break up our family," Jenny sobbed. "Honey, your mother ruined our family. It's not my fault." I hugged them and kissed their cheeks. "I love you girls. I'll be in touch every day." I left them crying in the bedroom and went to the garage. As I drove out of the garage, I was almost hit by Katie, speeding away. I shook my head and drove on. The next week was nothing short of pure hell. I refused to take my wife's calls, and for the first 3 days she called me every hour on the hour. She must have taken a week's vacation because she couldn't call from the shop floor and had to be on the job site all day. She left countless messages begging me to call her. I deleted every one of them. After those 3 days, my mother, mother-in-law, both daughters, and Kathy's sister begged me to talk to her. They all said it wasn't as bad as I thought, but every time I asked them if she had cheated on me, they wouldn't answer. They all knew she had. They just wouldn't admit it. I stopped taking everyone's calls. I told my daughters I would talk to them, but their mother was not to be mentioned. I had to hang up twice before they believed I was serious. At the end of the week, I met with a lawyer. I wanted to just split the house in half. She could own the house until the girls moved out. Then we would sell it. The lawyer said I could get more than half of the proceeds for the house since my contribution to the down payment and monthly payment is more than Kathy's, but I told him to just split everything equally. I thought alimony or maintenance was a done deal, but it turns out that since my wife makes enough money to support herself on her own, I don't have to pay her anything. That was the best news I've heard in a while. I don't have to pay her to fuck her lover. The only catch was that I had no proof of her cheating. The judge might not allow it and reduce it to irreconcilable differences, and I'd have to prove that we were trying to work things out. I'd take my chances. My attorney was preparing to file for divorce, and life went on. There would be no forced mediation or counseling. There would be no lawsuits for alienation of affection. There would be no drawn-out fight. The split was fair, and any judge could see that even blindfolded. But nothing comes easy. What she could do was fight. When she was handed the papers, she unleashed her family barrage on me again. Turns out she only f***ed a guy once that Friday before my birthday, or she convinced everyone that she did. I was labeled as the bad guy because I wouldn't let her explain, as if any explanation would have been acceptable. My mother basically called me a wuss because I didn't fight for my marriage. My mother-in-law told me that we are even because I too broke my vows by not staying with her during the hardest times. My daughters told me that I should stay in the family because our divorce would scar them for life. It was unreal. I hadn't done anything wrong, but I was being accused of divorce. It got to the point where I asked my daughters to give their saliva for a DNA test. They refused until I lied to them and told them it was a court order. Kathy wrote me a letter that was mailed to my store. I read it, and it said she was caught up in a kid's attention to her. I say kid because the bastard was only 21 years old. They'd only had sex once in the backseat of his car, and sexually he'd turned out to be worthless. Like the fact that he turned out to be a loser was supposed to fix everything? She also said that when I caught her in the car with a guy, I told him privately to never talk to her again. It didn't matter. She cheated on me once, and once was enough. The best part was that because she gave me the letter, I didn't have to prove cheating for the divorce. She did it on her own. That meant I didn't have to file an irreconcilable differences claim and prove that we were trying to work things out. Karma was finally on my side. She tried to resist the divorce, but when the judge saw the terms I proposed and her letter confirming the infidelity, he approved it. I was supposed to be divorced in 60 days. And so I found myself alone on an island of desolation. For refusing to talk to her, I was labeled as immature and an asshole. It got to the point where my mother and my daughters stopped talking to me. It hurt, but I was on the side of righteousness, and if they didn't like it, well, I called my daughters every day. They never answered, but I left voice messages telling them what was going on with me and asking what was going on in their lives. I didn't let them blame me for our lack of communication. I continued to make every effort and get in touch with them, whether they wanted me to or not. One thing that changed was that I started having coffee with Missy on Sundays. It started innocently enough when we ran into each other at a local coffee shop. She and Mia lived in the neighborhood and were out for a walk. I invited them to join me and told her about my suffering while Mia watched cartoons on my iPad. "I'm sure your daughters will come around, Bill," she said. "They're young, impressionable, and living with your wife. There's no telling what nonsense she's put in their heads." I hope you're right. I just hope they're not too far gone. I miss them like hell. The next week, I walked into the same store at the same time and was reading when I heard, "Hey, stranger." I smiled and invited them to join me again. "Is this normal for you, or are you stalking me?" she asked with a smile. "No, I live nearby and I like to have a cup of coffee and read on Sunday mornings. It's kind of lonely at home, so I come here." She sipped from her cup and we chatted about the neighborhood until we parted ways. It wasn't a conscious decision to meet every Sunday, but we did. I enjoyed her company and little Mia was a delight. The day the divorce became final, I knocked on the front door of my old house. My wife answered, and it was obvious she was crying. She didn't say a word, just invited me in. "Are the girls home?" I asked. "They're watching the musical at school." "I know why you're here. I expected you to come tonight." "Really?" I asked with a smirk. "You waited until it was too late to stop it, didn't you?" "Yes," I said. "I knew you would beg and plead and tug at my heart trying to make up, and I couldn't let that happen. You broke my heart, and there's no way I'm forgiving you." "Damn it, Bill. It was one time. One bad mistake. Why couldn't you forgive me? Why couldn't you find a way to stay with me? Didn't you love me as much as I loved you all those years ago?" I laughed. "Did you love me when you flirted with your douche? Did you love me when you avoided me all weekend and left me alone on my birthday? If that's your idea of love, you're beyond help." "I never wanted this to happen," she sobbed. "I never wanted a cheating whore as a wife either, but here we are, we met." She gasped and started to speak before I interrupted her. "Katie, not only did you break my heart, but you turned my mother and my daughters against me. I will never forgive you for that either. It's your fault for acting irrationally." I got angry and said, "If you don't make my mother and my daughters apologize to me and make things right, I will tell every man you date that you are a cheating whore. I will try to ruin every relationship you have in the future because you ruined mine. I don't need anyone else." "Wrong answer. I guess I'll have to find other ways to hurt you and embarrass you." I got up to leave and she grabbed my arm. "It's not my fault. You can't blame me." "Oh no? Did I cheat on you?" "I don't think so. You know what's really disgusting? You allow your daughters to grow up believing that cheating on their husbands is acceptable. Because of your behavior, they'll go into adulthood assuming you're a saint and I'm a sinner, and it's okay because it was a one-time thing. Well, f it. I'm not going to go down because some asshole made you feel sexy." I pulled her hand away from mine and said, Rotten hell for leaving our marriage. Just having sex with you, whore. I left her crying and wasn't upset about it. A few weeks later, Missy knocked on my office door. Got a second, Bill? Sure, come on in. I frowned as she closed the door, expecting something bad to happen now. Bill, does the company have a rule against dating other employees? I hated it when she asked me that. I was hoping I'd be able to ask her out. Looks like I was too late. No. We have a strict sexual harassment policy. This policy protects just about anything that can be damaged by a failed relationship between coworkers, and if two people can't work together after a breakup, it's their fault, not the company's. Good. That's exactly what I was hoping for, she said, placing a folded piece of paper on my desk. What's that? I asked. My address and phone number. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night for dinner. Mia will be joining us. I smiled and agreed. Good. You're a good man, Bill. You deserve to be happy, and I want to give you a second chance at happiness. She popped out of my office with a cute spring in her step, and I looked forward to our dinner. Hey, it's Dad. I hope you and your sister are doing well. Business as usual in my world, except a woman at work asked me out to dinner. Well, anyway, I love you and miss you. Please call me soon. Bye. I knew this message would cause some problems, but I didn't care. I needed to move on, and I was glad to see that Missy had taken over, as she had before. Missy was a beautiful woman with an even more beautiful character. Her daughter was very well developed and adorable, and I had already met her parents. I felt like I was finally ahead of the curve. Only 15 minutes had passed when Katie texted me, "I can't believe you're already dating. You're a real bastard." I laughed when I read this. I never realized how delusional she was. To think that I would sit there and worry about her was insane. Maybe some guys would mourn the loss of their marriage at the hands of a cheating wife, but that wasn't me. At 41, I was young enough to find love again. Hell, I was young enough to have more kids if I wanted to. That was worth thinking about. Missy was in her early 30s. She might want to have more kids. I knew it was too early for such thoughts, but as a single mom, these things were probably high on Missy's list of potential suitors. I'm sure she was looking for a husband, not a toy. Though I certainly didn't mind being her toy. I hadn't gotten laid in months. The next evening, I showered and shaved after work and dressed casually. Looking in the mirror, I didn't mind what I saw. I was in good shape with no extra wheels or love handles. I had a full head of brown hair that had yet to show gray. I had a great job that paid well and had money in the bank. I considered myself a pretty good catch for any woman, let alone a young one like Missy. That's when I realized I had no idea how to date someone. When you are married, you are always together and know everything about each other. There was no problem holding hands or kissing. When you came home after a night out, you knew sex was just around the corner. The status quo was comfortable. Oh my God! I had to relearn how to have sex. I knew every point on my ex-wife's body that gave her pleasure. I just had to hope that the next woman I had sex with liked the same thing, or at least had a good relationship with her. I was afraid I wasn't ready to date and regretted getting into the dating scene so quickly. I knocked on the door of her house with a bottle of wine, flowers, and a stuffed animal. I decided it wouldn't hurt to gain Mia's favor. When she opened the door, I was shocked by what I saw. Her curly red hair was loose around her shoulders, and she was wearing the perfect amount of makeup. She was wearing a roomy sundress that came down about 4 inches above her knees, showing off her beautiful legs. She was barefoot, and her toes were painted a hot pink color to match her fingernails. She laughed and asked, "Do I pass the test?" "God, yes," I said, before I could take back my words. She laughed even harder and took the flowers and wine from me. "Mia is watching TV. Go tell her hello. She'll love the bear." She left for the kitchen and I knelt down next to Mia. "Hi, sweetie. I brought you a bear cub." She looked at me apprehensively and then lit up the room with her smile. She held out her hands for the bear and ran to show it to Missy as soon as she picked it up. It brought back fond memories of Jenny and Jill at the same age. I realized how long it had been since we had talked to them, and I missed them even more. "What's wrong?" asked Missy, breaking me from my thoughts. I smiled forcibly and replied, "Nothing. I was just thinking about my daughters when they were Mia's age." "Is it really that bad?" she asked. They still won't talk to me. Kathy has turned them against me, and I can't change their minds. But I'm still trying. I leave them messages every day and I'm not going to stop. I'm so sorry, Bill. I know this is terrible for you. Every day. But I know they listen to my messages. I told them about our date tonight, and Katie texted me to tell me I was an asshole for getting to the point so quickly. Sorry, that's not too fast, is it? She bit her lip and looked pretty damn cute while doing it. Maybe, I answered honestly, but I'd be happy to find out with you. She smiled and took my hand. Dinner is ready. I hope you like pasta with meat sauce. Sounds great. Oh, I have garlic bread too, so you should be ready for us to make out on the couch later. Mia giggled and I stood there shocked that Missy had gotten so candid. She saw my awkwardness and said, Bill, we're both adults, and I've known you for 3 years. I know what kind of man you are, and it doesn't take much to realize that I really like you. You're going to be a hot commodity soon, and I want to stake my claim early. Hot stuff? I asked. Yep. You have no idea how much buzz the news of your divorce has caused at the store. Honey, your appearance on the market, so to speak, has caught the attention of many unmarried ladies. You're a handsome man in good shape, you're smart, stable, and we all know how you feel about fidelity. When I sat down at her table, I felt quite good. So I'm getting in line early, she finished. I took her hand and squeezed it. I like you too. Mia, not wanting to be left out, said, Sketty is my favorite. I like Sketty too. The fattier the better, I said. Seeing a jar of Parmesan cheese on the table, I added, and you must have really stinky cheese. She giggled and replied, It's not stinky cheese. It's Parm. Stinky cheese, I said, bringing the jar up to my nose and imagining it was the worst smell ever. Wow, this is really stinky cheese. Missy shook her head as I handed the jar to Mia. She sniffed it, shrugged, and poured a generous portion over the spaghetti. Over dinner, we kept up a light conversation. I asked about Mia's preschool class and her friends. She easily told me all the details she could remember. I enjoyed the conversation immensely. After a while, I realized that Missy wasn't talking. She was smiling broadly and just watching her daughter and I exchange a few phrases. Eventually, she started collecting plates and I said, Let me help. Oh no. She hasn't told you about her favorite TV shows yet. She laughed as Mia started telling me about all the best children's shows. After putting Mia to bed, Missy came back and sat next to me on the couch. I handed her a glass of wine and she sighed contentedly, putting her feet up on the poof. I love being a mom, but sometimes it's the best part of the day for me. Instinctively, I put my arms around her. When she snuggled up to me, I said, It's worse with 2. You bet. Do you think your girls will come around? I hope so, I replied thoughtfully. I'm doing my best right now, but it's still raw for them. She turned and kissed my cheek. You're a great father. Just don't give up the fight for them. She set down her glass and leaned back in her chair. Bill, I've already told you that I really like you, and I'm too old to play the will we or won't we game. I'd like to keep seeing you, and that includes inviting you into my bedroom. I was about to tell her we didn't have to do that, but she raised her finger. I know you want to be a gentleman and all, but you don't have to be. What I'm trying to say is that I don't want to be your girlfriend having sex with you or a friend with privileges. I'm warning you that I'm looking for an exclusive relationship. I have a daughter to think about, and frankly, she needs a daddy just as much as I need a husband. I tried to speak again, but was again rebuffed. This conversation usually ends with the guy picking himself up and running away. I don't think you're like that, but I'm giving you a way out. If you want to sow your oats and experience the single life, I'm not your girl. If, however, you want to see if we have a chance at a long life, I'm your woman. Wow, I said. Did you prepare that speech or was it given on the fly? She frowned, misinterpreting my feelings. Missy, as you said, we've known each other in a working relationship for 3 years now. The last few weeks of having coffee together have been very pleasant. I'm a family man, that's all I've ever been. I don't know how to be single, and the thought of dating scares the hell out of me. If my wife could keep her legs shut, I'd still be a happily married family man. No, I don't want to play on that field. She smiled and took my hand. I continued. You're beautiful, smart, and you make great spaghetti. She laughed and playfully clapped me on the shoulder. I'd like to be your boyfriend. Consider me part of creating something good for all of us, including your little girl. We didn't make love that night. As much as I wanted to take her right there on the couch, I decided it was best not to rush things. She had practically confessed her love to me and was very aroused, and I decided that for my comfort, it was best to take my time. I received a gift from the gods when I received an application for a managerial position. I never learned the name of the brat who ruined my marriage and couldn't get back at him. But when he showed up for an interview for the night manager position, I recognized him immediately. I knew he would never recognize me, but he might recognize my name, so I asked Anne to interview him and hire him on the spot. On the second night of his job, I waited in the parking lot for him to start his shift. I walked over to his 90s car and put a 40-inch TV I had bought from a competitor in the back seat. We had the same model, and I happened to know that one of them happened to be in stock. In the morning, I timed my arrival to coincide with the end of his shift. I walked him to his car, chatting about what he thought of his crew of guys. When we got to the car, I noticed the TV in the back seat and pretended to be shocked. Jeff, did you buy a TV before your shift? We're not open yet. No, Bill. It's not mine. I don't know how it got there. Jeff, I think we need to go back to the store. Bill, you have to believe me. Check the cameras. I shook my head and said, okay, bring the TV. We went back to the store and the baby was scared to death. At one point, I thought he was going to cry. We didn't have night security because since the store closed for the night and had a night crew working there, we didn't need it. We had cameras everywhere and only one place the cameras could be turned off. Only the managers had the key to that room. The camera was pointed at the door to the room, but it was above the doorway to the stairwell. I mentioned this to security a few years ago, but they never fixed the problem. Then I easily opened the door to the stairwell, walked over and covered the camera with a piece of black duct tape. I then disabled the security camera system. Well, technically I shut down the computer that controlled the system. When I brought him into the room and he saw that the computer wasn't working, he panicked and continued to plead his innocence while I called the police, as per the rules. When all was said and done, the guy was convicted of a misdemeanor and got no jail time. I was hoping he'd get a couple months, but it wasn't an expensive enough TV. He had to do a bunch of community service and pay a fine, which oddly enough was more than I paid for the TV. With a felony on his record, he'd also have a hard time finding a retail job. That made me happier, but still not worth the risk I took. The corporation increased security by installing cameras in the parking lot. They were long overdue. He was so stupid he never realized I did it. He tried to blame the team for setting him up, but he couldn't prove anything. They didn't miss him when I fired him. On a chilly Saturday morning, a week after dinner with Missy, I saw her waiting in the car to stay warm. When I parked next to her, she met me at the door and greeted me with a kiss. Are we still having dinner tonight? She asked. Absolutely. Okay. I have something special I'm cooking for us. You won't want to miss it. I wouldn't. Is that the tramp? Asked Katie from behind me, interrupting me. Excuse me? Shouted Missy, unclenching her claws completely. Katie, what do you want? I asked, getting annoyed. I've been trying to call you. Did you block my number? Yeah. After your 30 messages about how I'm an asshole for continuing to live, I'm done. What do you want? I want to talk about the girls. We need to deal with college. They can go wherever they want. I took care of the money for them. I'd like to be a part of it, but since you poisoned them against me, they won't talk to me. They're afraid you won't pay your tuition. Of course I'll pay for it. I still love them, even though because you can't keep your legs closed, I lost them in the divorce. Missy laughed. Katie glared at her and said, It's not my fault you couldn't forgive me for one slip-up. Oh? One slip-up? It was only once because you weren't tactful. I dealt with you right away. It doesn't matter. You should still be my husband. We should still be a family. You're delusional. You cost me my marriage, my family, my daughters, and my mother. I swear you better never date a man if I find out about this. You'll never see a second date. No one wants to date a cheating whore. unless they know about your reputation and are looking for easy sex. I turned and walked toward the store. I heard yelling behind me, and when I turned around, I saw that Missy had Katie pinned against the car, jabbing her finger in her face. "Stay away from my man, bitch. You threw him away and I picked him up." I ran up and pulled her away. "Stop it, Missy. She's not worth this kind of trouble." "You heard me, bitch!" shouted Katie, and turned and walked toward the store. "Please go away, Katie. It's over between us and it's your fault. Yours and yours alone." I left her sobbing by the car. I caught up with my panting Missy and took her hand. She looked up and smiled at me, slowing down. "I'm sorry, Bill. I guess I was being too territorial." "Oh no! I like it when women fight over me in the parking lot. It's great for my ego." We laughed and went inside to get some work done. Later that morning, my mom called me. When I answered, she mumbled, "Billy, She didn't finish, and I heard a knock, but the call didn't end. I hung up and called back, but there was no answer. I called 911 to have them send an ambulance to her, but was told the call had already come from her house. I feared the worst and asked Anne to cover for me since I had to go. She understood, and as I ran through the store, I ran past Missy, who yelled after me. I ignored her and ran straight to my car. When I got to my mom's house, the ambulance was already pulling away, and I followed it. When I got to the back doors, I found that she was gone before the ambulance arrived at the hospital. She must have passed out while we were on the phone. I cried, sitting in the lobby of the emergency room. I sat there alone and thought about the last word my mom had said to me. What was she going to say? Maybe it was, "Am I in trouble? Am I having a heart attack? I'm sorry?" The phone rang and it was Missy. "Hey, my mom just died." "Oh, Bill. I'm so sorry." "Yes, thank you. I'm afraid I won't be good company tonight." "No, I'll be with you. You need me, please let me come." "Okay, yes," I said. I didn't want to be alone, and I was glad she'd agreed to be with me. "I'm on my way home. I'll meet you there after you get out." "Okay. I'll see you soon." I finished talking and went to my car. Instead of driving home, I drove to my old house. I needed to tell my girls, whether they wanted to see me or not. As I pulled up to the house, I saw both girls' cars in the driveway and sighed. I had never imagined that the first words we would say to each other would be such news. I didn't care that I didn't live there anymore. I entered the code into the garage door opener and stepped inside. Kathy's car wasn't there, and I was glad for that. I don't think I was in the right state of mind to see her. The living room and kitchen were empty, so I went upstairs to the bedrooms. "Daddy!" yelled Jill as I walked into her room. "What do you want?" shouted Jenny, coming in after me. "Did you come to beg?" "Well, you can go to—" "Grandma had a heart attack and died this morning," I said, interrupting her. They both gasped. "I just thought I should tell you this in person. Now I'm going to hell." I walked out and closed the door behind me. I heard Jenny yell for me to wait, but I ran to my car and drove away. I went to the little lake where I spent so much happy time with the girls. It was too cold for boats, but the water was starting to thaw and was very calm. I sat down on the picnic bench and cried again. This time I cried not only for my mother, but for the loss of my daughters. The fury in Jenny's voice told me that I wasn't needed in her life. She didn't need to tell me to go to hell. Her tone said it all for her. I wondered if I'd made a mistake along the way. Not with Katie, but with the girls. What had I done so wrong that made them hate me so much? Katie was the one who ruined our marriage. Why can't my daughters understand that? I don't know how long I sat there, but I heard someone approach. I turned around and it was Katie and the girls. "How did you find me here?" I asked, turning around to look at the lake again. "You didn't turn off the synchronization of our Find a Phone app," Kathy said. "Bill, I'm sorry about your mom." "Yeah?" I spat. "Do you regret her death or the fact that you turned her against me and she died without ever making up?" She didn't say anything. "Leave me alone. I can't deal with your shit right now," I continued. "I'll never forgive you for what you did to me." The last time we talked, she told me she wouldn't talk to me again until I came to my senses and backed out of the divorce. She didn't even say she loved me when she hung up on me. I'm so sorry, Bill. For everything. I heard her leave and Jenny said, "Dad, we're sorry too. Please forgive us for being bitches." I turned around and they both rushed over to hug me. We cried in each other's arms for what seemed like an eternity. It's not my fault, girls. Why can't you realize that what your mother did is the reason we're no longer together? We're sorry, Dad, Jill said. We just thought you should forgive her. She loves you, it's so obvious. Not enough to keep me faithful, Jill. I'm sorry, girls. I'm so sorry. We hugged again while Kathy watched from the warm car. Girls, I need you so much. You'll be leaving for college soon, and I'm going to miss you. We're wasting so much time. We get it, Daddy, Jenny said. We're not going to shut you out anymore, Jill added. I wish your grandmother had a chance to do the same. Daddy, can we come with you? We haven't seen your new house yet. Maybe we could get a pizza. Sure, tell your mom and let's go. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw Missy's car. I forgot she was coming. Girls, it looks like you're going to meet Missy. Is she your girlfriend? They asked in unison, making me laugh. Yeah, well, we just started dating. Look how he's blushing, Jenny. It's so cute. They jumped out of the car and were at Missy's door in a flash. They peppered her with questions, and I could see that Missy didn't understand what was going on. Girls, leave her alone. Carry her into the house and I'll introduce you all. They kissed me on the cheek and scurried off to my garage, and I walked over to a shocked Missy. Sorry about that, I said when she opened the door. She smiled radiantly and kissed my cheek. Your daughters? Mm-hmm. Come on, you'll be formally introduced. I wish I knew, dear. I must look awful. I laughed and replied, You're fine. They'll like you. Jenny, Jill? I want you to meet Missy. They hugged. Jenny, as usual, cheekily declared, You're super hot. Jill jumped up and said, Good for you, Daddy. Missy laughed and I was too shocked to say anything. Hey, let's take a quick look around the house, and then I have some things to take care of for Grandma's services. Bill, I'll order some pizzas while you show them around. Sounds good to me, darling. You read my mind. Oh, the girls cooed. I shook my head as Missy smiled. I decided that I would wait until the next morning to call and spread the word about my mom. I'll write an obituary in Monday's paper and post details of the service on Facebook after visiting the funeral home on Sunday. After dinner, we sat around and spent hours telling Missy stories about my mom. My girls, not so innocently, added a few embarrassing stories about me to keep Missy more interested. It wasn't my fault the pier was wet and I fell in the lake, I swear. Before I knew it, it was 10. Girls, time is slipping away from me and it's getting late. They frowned and asked, Can we stay the night? I don't have beds for the guest rooms yet. Tell you what, I'll pick you up in the morning and we'll go out to breakfast, okay? If you don't mind, I could use some help figuring out what to do with Grandma's stuff too. Of course, Dad. We'll help if we need it. Thank you. Missy, do you want to go for a ride? Or do you need to go home to Mia? She's staying with my parents. Jill jumped up. Who's Mia? Mia is my 4-year-old daughter. They both squealed, and Jenny said, Oh my God, I can't wait to meet her. Missy laughed at their excitement and said, Someday soon, I promise. Okay, let's go. They're great girls, Missy said, as we sat on the couch shortly after returning to my house. I'm glad you were able to get back together with them. I sighed. Me too. I just wish it didn't require my mom's death. She snuggled into my arms, and I fell asleep with my arms around her. When I woke up in the morning, she had covered us with a blanket and was still snuggled up against me. I missed being so close to someone. I kissed the top of her head and said, I'm sorry I fell asleep on you. She moaned, stretching. It's okay, baby. You've had a very emotional day. Would you like to join me and the girls for breakfast? Only if I can take Mia with me. My parents have plans for this morning. Of course. My daughters will like her. Since we needed to pick up Mia, I asked my daughters to meet us at IHOP. When I walked in holding Mia's hand, my girls rushed to her. Within seconds, Mia was in their arms, twirled in the air, and then they tickled her and covered her with kisses. She squealed and giggled the whole time with a huge smile, to the point of yelling, "I have to go to the bathroom." The girls said in unison, "We'll take her," and scurried off to the bathroom. "I don't know, Missy. Do you think they'll get along?" I asked with a smirk. She playfully clapped me on the shoulder and kissed my cheek. "I hope it stays that way for years to come," she said. She was set for the long term, and technically we only had one date. It was a little unnerving, but I was confident I could handle the feeling. As we ate, Mia and my daughters talked nonstop about everything. I could see in my eyes that Mia loved to talk, and not just about herself. She asked so many questions about my daughters' lives that I think even my girls were surprised. My daughters were neighborhood babysitters, so interacting with young children was their forte. They knew all the hot kids shows and movies, and Mia ate them out of the palm of her hand. They also got along well with Missy. There was no hostility or display of anger when I dated her, which shocked me. They refused to talk to me for months after the divorce, but as soon as they met my new girlfriend, they immediately became best friends. I didn't understand that, and I'm going to have to try and get some sort of explanation from the girls. After making dozens of phone calls, starting the long process of cleaning my mom's house, and visiting the funeral home, I was finally able to sit down and relax. The girls got back to my house for dinner, and Missy and Mia split off in different directions after breakfast. Missy decided it would be too emotional for us, and wanted to avoid the discomfort of Mia asking questions about everything while we sorted things out at my mom's house. "Daddy, are you in love with Missy?" asked Jenny suddenly. "We've only seen each other a couple times outside of work. It's a little early to call it love." "Okay, Dad," Jill said like I was an idiot. "Have you seen those good old cartoons where the girls' eyes flutter open and they fold their palms against their cheeks as they look at their prince?" I nodded, taking a bite of a slice of pizza. "Well, she practically has hearts floating around in her head when she looks at you and flaps her eyes," Jill said. Before I could deny that she liked me, they looked at each other, turned to me and said, "We like her." I went from excited to see my daughters to angry. I threw my piece on my plate, wiped my hands, and went to the sink. Leaning on the counter facing them, I tried to calm down. "Daddy?" asked Jenny. "Girls, how can you break my heart all this time and now sit there and tell me you like my girlfriend? What have I done to you to make you think it's okay to shut me out? Ignore me? Tell me to go to hell when I see you for the first time in my life? What did I do? Do you know how many times I cried after leaving you a message I knew you didn't care to receive? Mom made us." "What?" shouted I. Jill replied, "It all started when my mom told us, if you think you're losing us, come back to her and we'll be a family again. We are so sorry." I turned around and Jenny, seeing a tear on my cheek, rushed to hug me. "Dad, we're sorry. After it didn't work, she told us that you left us and weren't going to pay for college because we wanted you to stay with her. She told us that the messages you left were just a ploy you used in the divorce to make it seem like you were the good guy to please the judge. And you believed that. Dad, how would you react sitting with her day after day and hearing her defend her one-time mistake against 20 years of love? We thought you were being unreasonable." "What about me? Would you let your boyfriend cheat on you?" I didn't get an answer. "Where does the border run?" I asked decisively. "Once? 2? 5? Answer me!" They started crying and we hugged. Their hugs immediately calmed me down and I felt awful. "I'm sorry, girls. I missed you guys so much." After each of them confessed their love to me, I said, "It's time to bring you home. You have school tomorrow. Don't forget to have your mom tell them about the wake and funeral. You're going to need some free time this week." We hugged one more time and I watched with warmth in my heart as they drove away. I looked up at the sky and said, "You didn't have to go to bring the girls back to me, Mom, but thank you. I'll miss you." Wakes are hard for me because I always felt uncomfortable sitting in a room with a dead body. My mom's wake was especially hard. Throughout the day, I walked over to the casket several times and looked at her. She looked peaceful. I was glad that she would see my father again. A few years before, he had died of cancer. He wanted a different kind of funeral without a wake. He, like me, thought it was strange for people to interact with a corpse. Mom had it all planned out. I guess you get older when you think about things like that. She'd even picked out the casket. All I had to do was set a time and day and take care of the small details of setting up the room and the service. I was glad she had done that. I was standing at the front of the room talking to one of her friends when Katie and my girls walked in. My daughters greeted me with warm, tear-filled hugs, and Katie gratefully left me alone. After saying the prayer, Kathy put something in the casket and went to the back of the room where she sat alone. I looked to see what she had put in there, and it was a picture of Kathy and me hugging my mom. She was holding each of our babies in her arms, and a smile a mile wide shone on her face. I picked up the photograph she had hidden away and reverently placed it next to her hands. It was the first time I cried that day. Later, the priest wanted to begin the prayer service. Kathy never left her seat at the back of the room. She engaged everyone. You can't be a family member for as long as she was married and not recognize people, and they all loved her. The protocol was for the immediate family to sit in the front row of chairs. My girls sat on my right and Misty on my left, but that felt wrong. I stood up and turned around. I saw Katie, who was still standing in the back of the room, wiping tears from her eyes. It didn't seem right to me. My mom wouldn't have wanted this. Kathy was as much a daughter to her as she was a wife to me. I walked to the back of the hall. When everyone was sitting and waiting for the service to begin, they noticed me and started following me. I held out my hand to Katie. "Come here to me. You don't need to hide here." She started sobbing and hugged me. Letting go of me, she whispered, "Thank you." We walked to the front of the hall, and my Uncle John gave her his seat, which was next to my daughter. "You're a good man, Bill," Missy whispered, kissing my cheek. It was the strangest feeling of my life, holding Missy's hand when my ex-wife was only a few feet away from me. I prayed that I wouldn't regret it later and have a problem with them. As we were wrapping up the day, I was saying goodbye to the last of the visitors when Kathy came up to me. With Missy next to me, I wondered how Katie would behave. I hoped she wouldn't start a fight out of respect for my mother. "Bill, thank you for inviting me into the family today. It means more than you can imagine. She loved you like a daughter. It was the right thing to do." "Oh, that reminds me. If you want, you can ride in the limo with us and the girls tomorrow." She hugged me and cried. I felt Missy's hand on my waist, and I was afraid a fight was coming. "Well," Katie said, breaking the embrace, "if you don't want anything from me, I'll go home." I shook my head negatively, and she smiled briefly at Missy. "I'm glad you're here for him. You may not know it, but he was a mama's boy. It's going to be really hard on him soon that she's gone." With those words, she turned and left the room. Missy hugged me from all sides and said, "Let's get you home." I threw my keys in my locker and made my way to the kitchen, glad the day was over. Missy was sitting at the table, accepting a cold beer from me. "I think things with Kathy went better than you expected." "You handled it well," she said as I enjoyed my cold Sam Adams. "Yeah, I'm glad. I was really expecting her to start something with you." "Well, I'm sure the girls helped with that. We just need to get through tomorrow and we'll be fine." I hoped she was right. I don't know why I got the uneasy feeling that Katie wouldn't be able to handle dealing with Missy. I guess I'm just paranoid. "Will you stay the night with me?" I asked. She smiled and took my hand. "You couldn't kick me out even if you tried." We didn't make love, but she was spooning with me, and it was the best sleep I'd had since the divorce. "You're watching me like a hawk." "I'm not going to abuse your gift by getting into an argument," Kathy said as we waited for prayer to begin. "I know that," I lied. "I'm just uncomfortable with it." She snorted and asked, "How do you think I feel? I'm an outcast here?" "A whore?" I frowned. "No one thinks that about you. Especially not today." "I'm sorry, Bill. I wish I could make it never happen. I wish." She cried and hurried to the bathroom. "It's hard on all of us, Bill," my mother's friend Jean said, patting me on the shoulder. "Your mom was a wonderful woman and we'll all miss her." I kissed her cheek and thanked her, glad that Katie had her mom's back to her tears. After the funeral, we were seated at a table at my mother's favorite Polish restaurant. The room was full, and Kathy looked uncomfortable as she searched for an empty seat. I approached her again and led her by the hand to the table where Missy and my daughters were sitting. "Kathy, we will always be a family no matter the divorce. No matter where we sit, you will always be welcome." A tear rolled down her cheek as she sat up and thanked me. I don't know when I got over it, but I felt like I'd finally forgotten the pain she'd caused. Life went on. The girls went to college and Skype with me every week. Missy and I are still together, and I am very close to popping the question. Katie and I communicate infrequently but cordially. She is also moving on with her life, dating the divorced father of a friend of one of the girls. He's a nice guy. I hope things work out for them. Some will say I should have forgiven her for the one-time slip-up, but I just can't do that. I may be the bad guy in some people's minds, but I can live with my